One of the things that I struggle with in nutrition personally is tracking my food. I hate the idea of sitting down every meal or even later in the day and putting all of my food into an app. Whether you can copy paste, it turns into a simple process. I just don't even want to add that to my schedule. I will check in with this every once in a while to see where my numbers are, but that has proven to be an inconsistent process for me over time. And the only thing that I've ever been able to do besides that is to get precise and track my food in the app every meal or every day. However, I've noticed that this is a problem with a lot of clients that I work with as well. And so I've kind of come up with this process that is rooted in a sufficient but not precise method. A lot of times people get caught up in being overly precise, being hyper intentional, and trying to get to the exact numbers, to the exact process that they need to execute. And the end result actually ends up being inconsistency for a lot of these people, not everybody. The reason for that is because they have the intentions of being precise, but their execution isn't long term. And so the net result is low. So therefore, I reverse engineered this process and said, why don't we start with something that's sufficient that'll at least get the ball rolling, moving along. You can make adjustments from, and if you want to titrate that up and get more precise, you can, but this is sufficient and it isn't overwhelming. So what I started doing was bulk tracking. On the weekends when I meal prep my food, I tend to write down all of the weights and measures of all of the food that I'm prepping right then. And if then I have a restock day later in the week on a Wednesday or Thursday, I'll do that same process again. Make sure I write all that stuff down. And then what I can do is actually populate that into an app that will give me what my weekly totals would be. So obviously then you would have to divide those by 7 to get your numbers for an average. Now that doesn't tell you the day to day that you're doing, but if you've eaten everything throughout that process, then you know that you've eaten all of those calories, the protein, fat, carbs, and whatever else you're tracking, and you can divide those by 7 to get an average. Over the course of weeks of doing this, one, it gives you a gauge of what you should be continuing on. If you're hitting your numbers where you need to be and you're making the progress you want and you want to stay there, you just need to simply make those same foods with those same amounts. If you change your foods, then you'd have to, again, create a gauge for that. But what this whole process does is allows you to kind of step back from the day-to-day nuance that tends to overwhelm people long-term. And it gives you another option. This doesn't mean this is the end-all be-all. This doesn't mean this is a brand new thing that everybody needs to do. But it is a good place to start. Again, sufficient, the method of being sufficient rather than precise is a much better strategy, in my opinion, if your goal is longevity in some of these. If you have a precise goal that you want to fit into your wedding dress in 6 months from now, or you're going to the beach in next year and you want to get dialed in on your body composition, you're an athlete that needs to make weight, or you're a bodybuilder that has a show coming up, sufficient might not be sufficient. You might need to be precise. So put this into context for yourself, but I'm going to lay out the process that I have worked and experimented on myself for the last several weeks, and only just to show you the process of this, so that you can implement this yourself, something that I've been working on with clients. So go ahead and follow along with this video and I'll show you the process that I've been doing. Okay, so behind me on the board is basically what I've been logging over the past several weeks. And I'm gonna show you week 1, week 3, week 6, or something like week 1, 4, and 6 on the board. And this doesn't have everything. I don't have enough room to do it, but I just wanna demonstrate what I've been doing and how this works. So week 1, when I meal prepped, I just weighed and measured every food that I knew that I was going to plan to eat for the week. Okay, so ground beef, I had 16 ounces. Prepped out bacon, I made 28 ounces. Pork chops, 17 ounces, so forth. Those are my proteins. On my carb, yellow potatoes, 426 grams. Sweet potato, 409 grams. 2 cups of rice, 14 pieces of sprouted bread. Those were the carbs. Fats, 2 pieces of avocado, 3 tablespoons of oil, 25 tablespoons of butter, because I cook with butter more than anything. Some extra like vegetables, fruits, tomatoes, 16 ounces, onions, 7 ounces, mushrooms, 227 grams. Okay, so hopefully this is easy to see. I know it's jumbled here, but and then again, there's more to this. I have bananas, oranges, berries. There's yogurt and dried fruit, granola. There's other pieces of meat or whatnot that I may eat in here. So this isn't a full representation of that log of that week or that meal prep. But that's what I log. And fortunately for me, I tend to eat everything that I make unless I way over prep, which I haven't done yet. But what you would do at the end of the week then is you would have to find the net amount. So if you ate everything here and everything that you planned and prepped and added in on the extra things that you might have picked up throughout the week, if you went out, you save one meal to go out to eat, or you just happen to go on a work trip or something like that, and you had to add to that. But to keep it simple, I just added those things up. If you didn't eat something that you planned, or you didn't eat all 426 grams because it's in the refrigerator, you just didn't make a meal with it, and you got to throw it out because now it's bad, weigh that and subtract it off, and now you know, right? All you have to do at the end of this then is just log one day into your app and calculate the bulk total of that week, and then divide by 7, and you get your average. Okay, so I just made these numbers up. These aren't the numbers that actually went into my app, but let's just say you came up with 20,650 kilocalories for the week, 1,375 grams of protein, 1,650 grams of carbs, 950 grams of fat. Divide those by 7, and you get your averages of 2,950 kilocalories for each day, 196 grams of protein, 236 grams of carbs, and 136 grams of fats. This gives you a good assessment of what you're doing, right? So now you can say on a bulk average on that week, this is what I consumed. And if you need to make an adjustment based off of what your numbers need to be, or someone's coaching you or something like that, you just want to make adjustments or keep it the same, now you know what to do for the following weeks. So for me on week 4, I made some improvements here, which I say over here. I think I added in more protein. Definitely added in more carbs. I realized I needed more carbs. Again, remember, these numbers are just made up. They aren't the actual distribution. But my grams of potatoes just went up. So when I'm just sitting there meal prepping and I'm weighing those things out, I could just add more to it. It's super simple. I don't have to think every single day, well, I need to titrate this up a slight amount. Right now, you're just focusing on the bulk sum for the week and so forth. So I went through that for up to week 4, and then even up to week 6, some of those went up. My carbs went up even more. My yellow potatoes, sweet potatoes went up in grams. My total protein amount went up. Ground beef went up from 16 ounces to now 32 ounces, and so forth. So you could see how you can have a good control of the bigger picture of what you're intaking, right? And you can just take those numbers, just pick a few days, or at the end of each week, just pick a day in your app and just log that out. Just type them all in bulk sum, divide by 7. That's your whole week of logging without having to do it at every single meal. So what has this allowed me to do? It's really allowed me to take more control of this process because it's not overwhelming so much to think of every single day, to weigh and measure every single meal. Is it precise? Not really, right? It's precise in terms of a bulk sum, but it's not precise in terms of the day-to-day. That's the biggest question that I would get is, well, how do I know what I'm eating on each day? I could have a day where I eat 1,400 calories, and a day when I eat 4,000 calories. Yeah, we want to look at that if we need to, right? But if you're making good progress in your goals, whether that's body composition, training, just energy levels and feeling healthy, and this is sufficient, then this is way easier of a process than getting too precise with the day-to-day. However, if you have really aggressive goals, like I said before, where you want to improve your body composition in a short amount of time, you have competition or an event coming up where this stuff matters, then you may need to dial up from here and get into the day-to-day. You can still bulk sum your amounts on the week, but the next process of that, or during your meal plan at the beginning of the week, but the next process would be to kind of individually divide this stuff up so you have meals already made in your refrigerator that you can just grab and go if they're already labeled with the amounts. But then if we're trying to really optimize things, you would have to pick on the day how much you're going to eat. If you have a lifestyle where energy expenditure is going to fluctuate largely based off of just what happens in your life, all of a sudden you have a ton of stuff coming up, a ton of stress that you dealt with on a day that you couldn't plan or prepare for, then you're going to have to eat more. So it doesn't give you the day-to-day, but the whole point here is we're focusing on the bigger picture of a long-term plan. And this is a great place to even fall back to if you have to get precise, but you're getting a little overwhelmed and stressed out with the process. So go ahead and, if this sounds interesting to you, drop some messages in the comments. If you have questions on that, I can answer them for you. If you already do this, I would love to hear how this works for you, or any other comments that you have on this. I would also say that another thing that I'll do for people in this process of helping develop a good, sustainable, consistent awareness tool of their nutrition to know what they're doing is giving them menu systems. So the one thing that I wanted to run through real quick about this is I kept my food generally the same across these past 6 weeks for a couple reasons. One, so that I can kind of just make things pretty consistent for this experiment. But number two, even though this doesn't distribute or demonstrate every food that I have in my food profile for the week, there's a lot of variety in this, right? And I have some room to move things around. I don't always have to have these same vegetables. I can switch these around. Don't always have to have these same carbohydrates, but I can switch them around. But when you switch things too often, then you have to re-gauge how much content of macronutrients and micronutrients, if you're focusing on them, are in there and equate them to how much you need to get out. And that makes things very difficult as well. So I think one of the things that you want to focus on first is keeping your foods, like, get a large variety within your week, but keep that consistent for a long term so that you can make adjustments. So I tend to use a menu system here where I might come up with 30 or 40 different foods for the week, and then you come up with different meals that use all of that same amount. That way you are getting variety in the fact that you're getting the same foods, but you're distributing them differently, making different meals so you get a different feel out of it and enjoyment out of it. And that's something that I may share in the future. So again, let me know what your thoughts are on this system and if this is helpful for you. Thanks.